So we're waiting for it to load, right?
Yeah.
Sip some more tea. Uh-oh. Excellent. Okay, so welcome elected members, staff and member of the public to our meeting today, the 18th of July 2022. So this is the Waitai Coastal-Burwood Community Board meeting. And I'd like to inform you all that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. And to start the meeting, I'd like to invite you all to stand as we do karakia, and I'll lead this. And the words should appear on the screen, or one of the screens. So let's get started. Whakataka ki te uru, whakataka ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atakura, ki tio, ki huka, ki hoku, tihe, auriora. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Better and better that every time. So we will start with apologies. So I'll call for apologies. I know we have an apology for Linda, who is just about to join the meeting again. So we won't need an apology for Linda. We're all here now. So we'll move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Does anybody have a declaration that they would like to make? No? Great. So we'll move on to item 3, which is the confirmation of the previous minutes. I'm sure you've all had an extensive read of those. I'm happy to move those. Do I have a seconder? Linda, by a nose. And all those in favour say aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 4 on the agenda. And a good friend of the board, Grant Donnell, will come and address us. So Grant, if you would like to come forward to the table, grab a seat there. I understand you're off to Australia on Sunday to live.
Yeah.
To the climes of the Gold Coast.
Yeah, health and family reasons. Yeah.
Excellent.
So,
welcome.
thanks. The mic. Do I really need to use it?
And press the button until the right goes read. Okay. Right.
All right. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak at the community board today. Over the last couple of years, I've advocated for my community parklands, part of the coastal ward. I felt there was a loss of connection and trust between the community board and ground roots community. With the support I've been given with members of the community board and specific council members, I've managed to highlight the need for safer communities, secure some funding and get a level of community pride back that will benefit the community in only ways I could dreamed of before I started this. I'd personally like to thank the community board and the council staff that assisted in the projects, and hope this is just a start of things to come for a community that has struggled in so many ways since the 2010 quakes and facing the impacts of demographic changes. I've seen our parks being used more for sport and kids just having fun, from frisbee, golf to playing weekend sport. With the installation of more picnic tables and the addition of an outdoor activity park would meet the dire need for teenage activities. The Pukeko Centre has a positive strategic idea plan for activities for school age and seniors in our community. It is with sadness and that I leave my wonderful community for health and family reasons. I asked the community board to do due diligence once I've gone and request the residents associations of our 2 wonderful wards to undertake surveys on issues. One example might be the temperature of the QE2 lane pool. From what I've seen on the online platforms, it might need to be a community engagement, and it also seems a bit cold compared to others. I've loved advocating for parklands. It has been my home since birth, just like many others. Our hearts, our souls, and we're born and bred here. And I wish everyone all the best for the future, and I'll be watching with interest from across the ditch. So thank you very much. Sorry.
It's been a while since you first came here, and I remember you were pretty nervous at that first time. But look, I'd just like to acknowledge your courage in coming forward. And I know that you find public speaking challenging, but you know it really takes people like you to actually step up and act on behalf of the community. We're not always going to get it right, but it's really great to have people like you sort of speak up. And yeah,
even got under the 5-minute bonus for once, eh?
Exactly. And like you come up with innovative ideas, and there's a couple of times where the whole community board has met at a site that you've identified as a safety concern, and I'm sure the community appreciates your work. I'm just going to open this up for any other community board members to say something. So we'll start with Celeste and then go to Linda.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. I mean, I feel like it's people like you that make this job what it is, because, you know, you're coming from a real place of understanding and advocating for the community. And I think that, you know, the work that you do, you know, as a volunteer is critical to the success of the rest of the organisation. You know, without people like you sort of drawing our attention, because we get very distracted by lots of shiny things all over, some of them very big things and some of them very small. But yeah, you sort of, you bring it back to what's important, and that's about people and communities. And I just want to say thanks, not only for the work you've done, you know, to help us, but just on behalf of everyone I know who really appreciates it, and you'll be missed. So yeah. And I'm sure we'll hear from you, so I look forward to that.
I can always zoom in, eh?
You can. Okay, thanks, Celeste. Linda.
I'm going to go back a wee ways to how this started for you and how you blamed me for being here, which is not fair.
You did ask me if there was anything else.
He saw a lady being hassled by young thugs, and he saw the fairness of that. And that makes them pretty special to step up, because most people just turn a back eye. That's really what they do. And so that's where it started. And always known that Parklands would have trouble with getting through the earthquake recovery, simply because it fell through the cracks. It had plenty of cracked floors and people wanted to get out, including me. And I think you've done amazing work. And I think later in our agenda, we've got a memorandum that pretty much says you got what you wanted. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Did anybody else want to say anything? Okay, Joe.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Grant, for coming and talking to us and highlighting all these things that are really, really important throughout our whole ward in Christchurch. You know, the safety thing and the safety aspect, kids in the park, drugs, thuggery. You know, it's really, it's something that we need to focus on as a community, and hopefully there's other people that will step up from what you have done and carry that forward. So hopefully that's in place through Parklands.
Yeah, I've worked on it.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and good luck for the future.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Phil, did you have something to say there?
Hello. Yeah.
Got it.
Read one on the top. You got me? Can you? Right. Well, we pay the cracks. I first met you, Grant, 3 years ago when we were discussing, when I was lecturing last time, when we were discussing that big dip.
Yeah, Mohill Road. Yeah.
Yes. So, and it's been a pleasure dealing with you over all that time, and your heart and soul goes into the community, and I wish you all the best for over Australia.
Thanks very much.
The fact that it cost me a dozen oysters because James Daniels was convinced it was in his ward and I told him it was in mine, which I haven't given him them Yes.
Always send them over to me.
You have a good time over there, mate. Look out for it.
Thank you, thank you.
Excellent. All right, hey, look, thank you, Grant. Best of luck and keep in touch. You never know, you may come back, we may see you again, so.
Yeah, you might see me Zoom
Don't
at
be
one of those
stranger.
meetings.
Well, somebody might contact you, you might want to, do
Totally,
something from over there. All right.
totally. All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming
Thanks,
along.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Okay, so that was item 4 on the agenda. We'll move on to item 5, which is deputations by appointment. There are none today, so and there actually are no presentation of petitions, which is item 6. So we'll move on to correspondence, and I'll ask Cindy to come and speak to these. I do believe we have 3.
Okay, so I'll take the report on the agenda as read and just highlight that I emailed you guys just before lunch this morning with an item of correspondence received late yesterday from the Darlington Community Cottage Trust. So my recommendations for all 3 would be to refer to staff for investigation and report back to the board by way of either an info council memorandum or a staff report if a decision can arise from that.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about these? So we'll start with Phoebe.
So just to note that while the letter was from the Darlington Community Trust, that actually all of the shops on that corner were affected by the flooding, and the dairy was quite badly flooded. And I know the shop beside that, the window of opportunity, had flooding throughout the shop, and so all of those shops I think were flooded by that event. And I had tried to contact council and also found it really difficult. I didn't know who to ring. There was no number on any of the information about who to ring to get that road closed and to get it. So I think the letter says a few things, but I think also what's needed is to understand why that corner floods, because there wasn't flooding on either side of it, it was just at that corner. So that it would be good to look from a drainage point of view as to why it was retaining water.
Yeah, good point. I think, Linda?
Yeah, just to add to what Bebe's saying, what the problem is with the shopping block itself is the back of the shop is lower. So they get the flooding from both sides, and the opportunity shop really took a bad hit.
Yeah.
We were lucky because we were down there waiting. No, these are the places we took photos, but you're not allowed to see them. We weren't too bad off for stock damage, but the point of this exercise is we used to have a plan. Now we don't have a plan, and if you ring the council for help, there's no sandbags. There's nothing. All I got was, well, good luck.
We'll go to Bunnings.
Yeah, look, I think it's this is a really important situation. I actually went down there and had a look and had a chat to Alison and then to the dairy and talked to the owner, although that was a wee bit challenging. English is not his first language, but they really got it in the neck, and it was really interesting talking to Alison at the opportunity shop, that saying how extensive the flooding was and how it was immeasurably exacerbated by the speed of vehicles driving around. Now, obviously that's on the people who drive through there, but at the same time, if council, or if we can identify a problem and we can get onto it quickly and at least slow the traffic down, make it very obvious what's going on, we can certainly mitigate the effects of the waves of water. And she said that was the problem. It was really the fact that...
And you drive along that road, sorry to interrupt you,
No.
you drive along that road, you have no idea that roundabout is flooded, and so you would hit it at 50 k's and not realise there weren't even any flooding signs up for quite some time.
Yeah, and the gutters are quite deep there, and I mean, obviously we don't know what the cause is. Obviously a lot of water at one time, but I was sort of thinking some kind of sandbags, at the ready would at least cut the waves down, wouldn't it?
The trust is quite happy to do that, and we've talked to all the other shopkeepers, and we should have a plan. We shouldn't rely on the council, but I think it's the council that really needs to close the road. that's an issue. And it wasn't just an issue there, it was across town, but particularly in the east. So the reports that we got as elected members talked about the northern area. Well, eventually, hotspots like Newport Street and Wainoni and others came up, but they were late at night. And I think it was pretty late by that stage, dark.
Yeah,
We just need a plan.
yeah, I think you're right, and I think we do need a plan. Celeste.
Myself and councillor Johansson raised before, because I think last time we had a similar issue in that we were getting a lot of queries sent to us directly. I'm sure Joe did as well and others. And we were just a bit of a block because, you know, there's no point me passing on to staff. So we did get some advice that they would do a bit more of a kind of come up with a bit more of a communication strategy that was a bit clearer about how to, you know, address some of the issues that they identified last time. That hasn't happened yet, but we are asking for something to be done because they've got a few ideas about how they can streamline the communications, because I think it needs to be localised a bit more. And they're aware that it's a bit of a problem the way, well, there's some areas that could be improved, but they haven't done that yet. So I'll feed that back as well. So if you've got any specific suggestions when it comes back up at council, it'd be good to hear what you think. Yeah, because I think it obviously with flood events likely to increase, it'd be good to kind of figure out what we can do around that stuff.
I'm sure this is an earthquake legacy problem.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah, because
There was no flooding before the earthquakes, it's since.
yeah, I don't ever recall, you know, the flooding before.
No, there wasn't.
Bad.
There must be a reason for this, because as Phoebe says, the four roads either way from it were not flooded. There's got to be a problem with the pipe not getting to the river, because that wasn't river level that you saw there. That if it was, then it would explain it. But there's a reason why it didn't get from there out. So we should try and get council.
I've already sent an organisation just to give them a heads up, and that will be 5 to 3 orders in relation to the drainage and civil defence for communication. So they'll get the official actions once the recommendations are moved and seconded tomorrow, and we'll just await their response.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, so I'm happy to move that we
Second.
yeah, okay, Linda's going to second that. So we'll deal with all these 3 pieces of correspondence at once and ask the council to, yep, everyone's happy with that. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded by Linda, so all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Can I just discuss a little bit about the one in Kingsbridge where you used to?
The pathway, yeah, if you like.
Now, this is one of the reasons why these things fall through the cracks, and this is one of the reasons why I think we should have this sort of in-house part thing. So just go and fix it. Don't have to ask anyone. It's done. So that's something that we should be pushing.
Yeah.
So these things wouldn't happen, because otherwise you've got to wait until it goes through the system.
This is mildly embarrassing, but those cracks in the photos of the pavement down there, 50 metres from where I used to live, as soon as I saw the photos, I knew exactly where they were, because I used to do a little bit of mowing down there after the earthquakes. But yeah, no, good point. Okay, so we're done with that, item 7. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the Coastal Community Board, Waitai Coastal-Burwood Community Board Area Report for July 2022. So I'll hand over to our Governance Manager Extraordinaire, Christopher Turner-Pullen. Christopher.
To be honest, happy just to take the report as read and just pull questions from you guys. The team have put some awesome work into this. There's lots of good news stories of what's going on in the area, but yeah, just happy to take questions. Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Chris on this? Joe?
Just regarding the ticket report, and it goes through how many percentage within so many days. And I see there's 75% of tickets are resolved within 188 days, it says, but that means 25% aren't, which is actually quite a massive amount of 1,613 tickets. Is there any possibility of getting a breakdown of what isn't resolved?
something that we can ask for. If you're happy for me just to take that away and just have a talk with the team that put that together, and it's our customer services team, and just find out a little bit more about what the 25% would be.
Yeah, and is there a pattern to it? Is there, like, are they all to do with roading or water, or it would be really quite good to know what's outstanding so that we can actually focus on those.
So can you just point me to where you're talking about the results?
Attachment A, please.
No,
It's just the ticket reports, it's
Sorry,
got
yeah.
75% resolved in less than 188 days. And 188 days is like 6 months.
But it's saying that the 75% of open tickets are less than 188 days old. Okay, so the 25% you're saying would be more. Let me find out a little bit more about that breakdown of what the currently open ones are, because I don't know if that necessarily means it that way.
Yeah, it just seems to me like there's quite a lot slipping through the gaps, so it'd be actually quite good to actually know them more. So yeah, that'll be good if you can get back to us.
Because the numbers don't quite, it might be just brain fog the way that I'm reading it, because you've got 25% of open tickets are less than 10 days old, 50% of open are less than 67, so that math doesn't add up to 100% anyway. So let me find out what that.
No, it's quite deceiving the way they've actually explained it, because all of them are less than 188 days old.
Yeah.
So I'm just taking like the majority result and then figuring out, well, the rest of them aren't resolved at all.
Well, they could be just 189 days.
And also they could be, because
We have no idea.
exactly, it's that it's a really good point, because that it doesn't add up, but also it doesn't talk about what the closed tickets are, because 75% might be open, but that means 25% are closed and resolved. So let me find out a bit more about
Thank you,
that.
Chris.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions for Chris at all? Statements, thoughts? I'd just like to say how great it is to see the Bridge Hub doing so well, getting active after that community space having been, I guess, shut for so long. I mean, it's an extraordinary story from how far they've come to where they are now with that building completed, and also the museum. Really exciting that they're going to be able to get that building. It's a wonderful little piece of history. Okay, so in that case, would someone like to move? Phil, you'd like to move it? Do we have a seconder? Joe? So all those in favour of us accepting the monthly report, say aye. Opposed? No, it's carried. So before we move on to item 9, I just want to thank the staff for all the work they do in terms of the area reports, and also all the work that they've been doing on the Strengthening Communities Fund. I forgot to thank them earlier for all that during our briefing. Obviously, that will all come to fruition next week, but thank you so much for all the work that you've done with all those groups. And we'll move on to item 9 on record time for us. So the elected members information exchange. So who would like to kick that off? Linda, you'd like to start?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of things. Gosh, it was 2 weeks ago, Joe and I went to the Department of Corrections Arapatama Centre and saw their new building. It was amazing. It's very, very well resourced. And one of the things that we discussed with staff there was also Rory and Cindy were there as well. So I think there'll be value in the board meeting with the staff on site down there and seeing how we can work for integration. It's an amazing asset for the community, and I really just feel that we could work with them a little closer.
Yep.
Okay, so that's number 1. Next Saturday, there's a garage sale at Darlington Community Trust, weather permitting. It's a really big event, and we've had cancelled time after time because of COVID, along with community events that they've arranged, which is really disheartening for them. It's really a means of connecting community that really doesn't have any facility. And, you know, that's an important role that the Trust takes. So if you're around, you'll see me there. And we have a ball and we eat food too. And the other thing is really just an observation as a Justice of the Peace. I'm seeing a marked increase in passport requirements. And I've been a little bit concerned about it. There's nothing we can do about it. It's out of our hands. But the common denominator here is people are leaving to resettle and they're going for higher wages. That's all for me.
Yeah, we have had a bit of pent-up demand over the last 3 years, particularly amongst young people wanting to go overseas. So,
No, these are families.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Linda. Who would like to go next?
Okay.
Phil?
I just think, you know, after Amanda came in the other last time and talked to us about flooding down in Brooklands,
Oh, yeah.
I went out, it was in the minutes, I went out and had a look there today actually, and I'm going to, since emailed someone at council staff, going to meet out there and have a look, because I think there's a way of doing this that will not cost a hell of a lot of money. One of the questions I asked when staff were here the other day was, can we flog some material out of the estuary? Now that's an absolute no-no, because I talked to one of the rangers and he said that's more of a sacrosanct estuary than the one we've got down here. But we have got a large tracts of land 200 metres back, that from the estuary is 200 metres back to all those houses. So the further, of course, the further you go away from the estuary, the less the stock bank needs to be, like we're seeing down here. So I'm going to meet the council down there. There's plenty of surplus sand on the farmland that's been grazed by horses, that we can build a stock bank more or less at the end of Irvine Street rather than way out. Don't try and stop the world flowing in from the estuary, but come back a bit, just like we do down here. So I'm just letting you know on that.
Whose land is that, Tom?
It's ours.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
So it's all part of the red zone, which I think Brooklands we already own. I think is actually ours now, according to the email.
So would that allow for a walking track down there?
Along the top of it, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, great. Well, can I encourage you to make sure that you see us in? It's just that because I'll be meeting with ECAN as well, so just to make sure that we're not doubling up on the same thing.
I only did it 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying for the purposes of everyone here.
Yeah.
Well, we could all go.
Exactly. Okay, thank you, Phil. Who would like to go next?
Do we go around the room?
Might as well.
Yep, since we're halfway already. A couple of things. The first is that there has been 3 attacks on women in the residential red zone. They say it's in the Darlington red zone, but none of them are actually in Darlington, but that's besides the point. And they're not in our ward. But I'm not sure if it's been raised at council that these attacks have happened in the red zone. And I know that various groups have talked about safety in the red zone over the years that the red zone has been in place, and the perceived lack of safety. We've kind of talked about getting the patrols back, which are now there. But I think it would be useful for council to talk to police and talk to the community about, it's not just about saying to women, which is what the police has said, saying to women don't run in the red zone, because that's really not the point. The point is it's an unsafe space, and how can we make it more safe for people to be in? Because we want people to visit it, but now there's been all of this news saying it's not a safe place to be, which leads to less people being there and it becoming less safe. So is that something that we can bring up with council staff around things like septic? So you know what that is, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I can take that offline and go straight to the manager of the red zone and just to see, one, that they're aware they should be, and 2, what, if any, plans they have going forward just in relation to communications and or what plans are in place to
Yeah,
make
right.
it safer / accepted. So
Even just talking to police about what's
Yeah.
going on and being really well informed about it, and then being able to provide information and communication out to the community about how to stay safe, I guess.
It is very disturbing, isn't it?
Very disturbing, considering it's the route is exactly the route that I run at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
That's yeah,
and the nature of the tax is getting more and more serious.
yeah.
Sorry, Karen.
The timing of those events would help as well. That would create a pattern.
Yeah, I'm often wonder why the police don't set up some kind of sting, but
We're not policing.
we're not police.
And what else? I've been attending with Celeste a weekly briefing or communication meeting around the wastewater treatment plant, and the nature of the conversation last week was that there's a lot of information. So this is my view, is that there's a lot of information that's quite technical. It's about, you know, the diggers and the getting rid of the stuff and blah, 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 which is all very interesting to people like Phil. But more important to me is the health effects, addressing those health effects, what council can do to advocate to for example, to Health NZ to provide subsidies to people who are attending the doctor, because all of this impact I've had, and then they've got a $50 or $100 or $150 worth of doctor's fees on top to get their health checked. And so that's been the nature of the conversation. They're not just focusing on the technical water and sewage, but actually focusing on the people and the impact that they've been seeing and what can be done. And I think it's the same as what happened in the earthquake, is that the physical response is fast and immediate, and then the response to people's emotional health is later, and we're still feeling the effects of that. And we need to be quicker about actually dealing with people's emotional and mental health. So that's my soapbox for mine. That's all I've got. Oh, and Te Tira Kahukihika's meeting this week. There's not really all that much on the agenda though, is there? But we're meeting, that's the main thing. We get snacks. That's all for me.
Thank you, Phoebe. Joe, I think that makes you next.
Yep, okay. So I'm an apology for the meeting tomorrow. I've got a few other ones on. Going back to the flooding, and after the rain events that we had, there was really bad flooding right around the ward. Pages Road again has been left to actually just evaporate by itself. So there's still puddles along there, and it's been 3 years of actually trying to chase this up and follow this up. And there should be something in place that staff have in place to actually deal with this every time it happens. I did request that the pump station be turned on, and they haven't turned the pump station on and said that it's broken. But that doesn't solve the issue of cyclists being on the road in danger, pedestrians up on the side. I went down there on video the other day, and there was 4 people walking along, a lady with a pram, and cars were going through the puddles, actually splashing the footpath. And it's really not good, and we should have actually something in place. Ellis Terrace was badly flooded, New Brighton Road, where they placed the new valve in, the backflow valve. That water has been pouring out of the manhole there, so the resolution was to go and put one of those big concrete blocks on it, and that concrete block is still there. So we need to be looking at trying to force solutions to this flooding, not just dealing with it. You would have probably seen that Anzac Drive was completely shut off due to flooding along there at one stage. And really this needs to be looked at, because Anzac Drive is where our fire station is where the police, all the emergency services go down there. And having our emergency services not being able to access these roads quickly and having to do detours, you know, that it's just not on, and we need to try and, I don't know how we get around trying to get action on this. But I think it's something that we really need to be looking into as a priority, actually. So that's that about the flooding. Can staff actually try and highlight that to other staff?
I think that a lot of area has been covered and staff are aware of every single one of those roads. There were communications, albeit slowly, in relation to some of those road closures and the action in which the organisation and or civil defence were going to take. When I go back to staff on the correspondence received in relation to the Gayhurst, McBratney's area, I can also highlight there are some concerns about other areas within the Brighton Coastal and Burwood wards. However, I think with the work that staff have undertaken just in relation to some of those stop backflow valves and stuff, I don't think that's a patch. I think that's their solution going forward. It's just a case of time for it to be finalised. They're waiting on a period of time for it to be dry for the contractors to go in and finish it
It's
off.
just like Pages Road being flooded on the edges the whole time.
Yeah.
And there's easy solution to turn on that pump station and drain that area.
Yeah.
And they're just not doing it, which is quite frustrating.
Yeah, completely understand your frustrations, but again, it could also be put down to the perception, you know, like you said, puddles. I guess it's an inconvenience that a car splashed a lady, but is it a hazard?
Yes.
It's just those perceptions, I suppose, but I can absolutely raise
Well,
it
it's
again.
definitely a hazard because there's
Yeah.
cyclists just about in the
Yeah.
really close to cars.
Yeah, I can absolutely raise it again, but there will be other projects
And
in
one
the
of the-
future that
yeah.
could resolve some of the concerns.
So one of the responses I got was that the area's been worked on at the moment and there'll be no flooding in the future. And it's like, well, does that mean that every single time it rains between now and 3 years' time when it's done, that this is going to happen? So
It's going to get worse.
Yeah, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
It's
But
never going to get better. The
Well-
coastal area.
no, well, I guess not until that portion of Pages Road and the bridge are completed then.
right.
And Waitai Street routes done.
So the other thing is that it's really, really positive at the moment, seeing so many events coming back on. And in the last month, you know, just the Matariki event down at South Shore, the event that they had down at the Bridge Hub, down at Rafiti Domain the other day, they had the cyclocross race on, which was really exciting to see with all the cycles and the people taking place in that. And then I also went to a big event they had out at Spencer Park through Bottle Lake. And this was a crazy backyard run, they called it, and people ran laps through the forest and onto the dunes, and it was kind of the last man standing thing. And someone ended up doing 23 hours of running, I think it was 32 maybe. Yeah, so did over 230 kilometres in this race through the forest. But it's really, really positive to see these things coming back and looking good for next year, hopefully. And the other thing I want to bring up is with the end of the term approaching and we're going to go into a new term, looking at like engaging with our residents associations and community groups about what they would like with meeting times and briefings and how can we make it better for them to actually engage with us, and can we actually get staff to initiate some work to actually consult with these groups and find out what would suit them, so that when it comes to a new term and trying to organise meeting dates and briefings and everything, that it actually ties in with the community needs.
I think that would be a discussion that for those who are elected in the new term to have with their community and all the resident associations or groups when they're elected, to have that conversation now is probably, the perception is not appropriate.
So are you saying, Joe, just what, are you talking about where all the residents associations get together like we have?
No, I think just, I think it's a really good time before a new term starts for actually groups to actually consult their people and say, hey guys, it would be really good to feedback to the community board and staff and let them know what would suit them best for the upcoming term. So that it starts right from the beginning. They don't have to go through the whole process of actually doing this consultation at the time.
Yeah, I'm sure staff could take that on board. I mean, our involvement in that is probably, I mean, it's a suggestion, but you know, our involvement in that may or may not be, none of us may get re-elected.
So I think I agree with Cindy. It'll be a conversation to be had with the new board. I take your point. It's good to have some of those now, but there's other factors as well, depending on who's elected, depending on whether they work or other commitments may affect times as well. So there'll be a whole gambit of conversations that will need to happen as part of the induction process, and that process takes a good while. I mean, the elections will be started of October, and I imagine, I haven't heard anything, but the inaugural meetings of the board won't be until mid-November. There's a decent amount of time to be having those conversations, and a lot of that can be led by the new board team as well, because they will already be talking with the communities, no doubt, as part of their campaigns.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Celeste, I do believe next.
Okay, just picking up on what Baby was referring to, we've had a weekly Zoom meeting that's called a community advisory group, I think. And basically it's a few members of different communities that are badly impacted, in particular by the offensive odours and other things. And they're sort of where, as elected members and members of the community and staff, just sort of having conversations each week about what we can be doing better in terms of communications, and it's particularly around the health and wellbeing. And as Phoebe pointed out, we've probably done all right in terms of the technical communications, but possibly we could be doing a lot better in terms of the communication around the other side of the coin, which is around people's health, mental wellbeing. And I was actually talking to a friend of Phil's about his mother. Yeah, I've got them out there. And his mother is, you know, stuck at home and unable to leave the house. She's 93 and she lives right next door, and it's been quite, you know, it's really tricky for her to just, she's not obviously open, she's on Facebook, and, you know, just thinking about how we can be better reaching to people that might not otherwise hear what's happening, because I suspect she doesn't know at all what's happening, and that there might be some improvement on the cards, which might actually be quite helpful. So part of the work of that group is to figure out what we can be doing better on that front. There's, for those that might not have been following the blog, there's a air monitor on Marine Parade at the moment. So that's continuous air monitor, which is quite useful. And they've been doing paint sampling, and they should come back with some results, hopefully, this week.
Is it, so there hasn't been any results as yet?
For the air sampling, it has.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what has it been showing?
I'm not particularly technical, but my understanding is the Marine Parade one has had some reasonable spikes. So the source of the odours shifted. Coming from the oxidation ponds in this direction of the wind and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's all coming from the ponds.
Yeah, that's right. So the source of the odour and the direction of the odour is actually having quite a significant impact on this part of town. So staff are taking that on board, and we're looking at what other kinds of support they can give to communities that might be getting more of the smell now. Aside from that, I see we've got it in the report, but I met with Brian, who's from Shirley Boys, and it's really cool that they're taking on a community project, which is around getting a bus stop on Travis Road. And he's obviously got the survey. He's really keen for people to fill out the survey, so if you can share it. But yeah, I just want to give him a shout out, because I think it's really great that they're considering this kind of thing. I did say the process can be long, but good on him for giving it a go.
It's great that they have that class, you know, they social action class.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And and also, yes, we've got the Matariki, which Joe referred to as amazing. Gardens are a fairly domain to their bulb planting, which Have they got some more of those coming up? Is there another one? Could be, okay. And then there was some communications around one of the stop banks in the red zone from a friend of the board, John Mowat, and I know that he'll probably have some more questions around that, so. And then finally, City to Surf, for those that haven't heard, it's coming back, which is very exciting, and I met with one of the new organisers, and it's running from Latimer Square along the red zone. Green's Mine, and ending up in Raffiti Domain, so it'll be really exciting when it happens. So I expect you'll be running that, Kelly.
Yeah, I'll try. Is that Dale Coulter that you met with?
Yes, yeah.
He used to organise the Coast to Coast meetings.
Yeah.
The logistics.
So it's a great run off road and all the rest. So yeah, that's it for me.
Fantastic. Well, that's great, Celeste. So last and least is me. So I've got a little list here. So I was at an online meeting with the Avon Estuary Trust the other day. They are in good heart, particularly in the estuary. Finances are in good stead. Their major concern at the moment is dogs not on a leash on the estuary chasing birds. And there's some recent data come out of Australia to show that when birds are harassed by dogs, it affects them considerably in terms of their ability to calm down and nest and desire to be in that area. So, they've just taken a particular interest in logging behaviours, and Blythe's Garden they talked about as being particularly bad for dogs off leashes, and so they're starting to put together some data. And it's a bit disappointing. So I think they're going to have to go to council and look at about enforcement of the rules around that. I've been to a few plantings recently. Most extraordinary planting I've ever been to was on Horseshoe Lake Road. Some 5,000 plants, done in 2.5 hours, which is extraordinary. And there was just people for Africa. There was, plus 400 plus people there. Really good to see. Done in 2.5 hours. What else? Burwood Pegasus Community Patrol have been quite active. They've got a few new members. It's starting to tick along, doing a bit of a membership drive. They're in good heart, run by the irrepressible Diane. So going well. I went along recently to the Burwood Residents Association. Phil was there, and they seem to be in good heart. Had a few issues. Interested in knowing when the footbridge over the Avon is going to be named. So that process hasn't really started yet. I'm sure we'll get some indication of when it is, but that might be
I think they're still waiting on the code governance group to be formed, so then they can figure out the processes going forward.
Because it's the job of that group to do that work.
It's the what, sorry?
Job of that group, the co-governance group, to
So
do that work.
when do you have any ideas as to when that's going to come together, Phoebe? No?
Do you have any idea?
No
I'll
one.
throw a number out there, I'll say a year.
That's not helpful.
I know, but I'll throw that number out there and I'll be surprised if it happens that quick.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on, I've had a bit of contact from people in Avondale discussing the slow speed neighbourhood. As we suspected, what people they're okay with the slow speed neighbourhood. What they want to see is traffic calming. And there's been a few posts on Facebook about the fact that it hasn't happened yet on that intersection, Oric Ave, I think it was. So Cowles is the other one. So they're keen to see that. They're speaking to a few residents who would really like to see Judabus, particularly by that park I think you were talking to about, Linda, that park in Avondale, because one person told me that they have like a number of football games going on there on weekends, cars on both sides of the road. The occasional person will drive through absolutely flat out. Now this came from a guy who used to who lives next to the park and who used to run the Coastal-Burwood Football Club. His name was Tony.
Yep.
Yeah, and he said that, at times cars roar up and down there when there's no one around. It's not really that important, but
What only road?
well, I think this is kind of It's even though I want to call it Holberston Drive, but I'm not, I think Holberston Drive's further along. It's the first left after you come
No, it's
over
Metal
the
Drive.
Bassett Creek. Moving? Yeah, not too sure.
There is no
It is
parking.
Metal Drive,
It is,
the car park.
yeah,
There could be some angle parking put in using, taking a little bit of the red zone.
yeah.
That would help.
But yeah, it's probably something for the
Yeah,
next
that's good.
term. But actually, that's a really good point, to make a bit of space, because he said it's really dangerous, with people coming from all over the place, and it'll only take, one person to get hit. Yeah. And last but not least, Marshall's Hall Trust, I think I mentioned last time, we've been negotiating with the landowner who's made an agreement to provide the land at sale. We just haven't agreed on the price yet. So that's progressing really well, and fundraising is starting to further the goals of building a community centre. So pretty excited about that. So Phil, did you have one more?
Just one little more. Where are we at with, there was some discussion, I think by you, Joe, about doing parking in the middle of Beresford Street like we did like was doing it in RMF. Did that go down any further down the track? Do you know? Can we put something forward to someone?
I'm confused what you're referring to, sorry, Phil.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else?
Or that's in the pipe.
No, Beresford Street.
Oh, yeah. I'll draw you a map.
Does anybody else have any final thoughts? No? Okay, so that's us. So we will finish with our karakia and then we'll close the meeting. So I'll invite you to stand and participate in the closing karakia. Okay, here we go. Ona hia, ki te uru tapanui. Kia wātea, kia mama, kia nāko, te tinana, te warua, e te ara te kata, korera, rongo, pakiria, ake ki ranga, kia tina, hui e, take. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.